And so we started thinking about using IoT sensors in summer of 19. We discovered that most businesses didn't have sensors deployed inside refrigeration because Wi-Fi and Bluetooth couldn't get a signal out reliably. The fridge or the freezer had a side with iron or steel or aluminum, and the side of the fridge or the freezer blocked Wi-Fi and Bluetooth signal. So we started thinking about maybe we can solve that and improve on that. We developed a new type of connectivity, or we used a new type of connectivity protocol called long-range radio to develop a solution that uses radio as opposed to Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. So our sensors use LoRa, long-range radio, to push signal out of the inside of refrigeration.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started.
20-Minute Leaders is a proud supporter of Make-A-Wish Israel and Tech to Peace, and is in proud collaboration with Secret Chord Ventures, J Ventures, Riverside FM, Fusion VC, Birthright Excel, J Impact, Leap, Google for Startups, and Hippo, and in media partnership with CTech. Welcome to another episode of 20-Minute Leaders. Meet Manik Suri. Manik is founder and CEO of Therma, a technology startup whose mission is to help protect our food, health, and planet. Therma builds safety and sustainability tools to eliminate food waste, improve energy efficiency, and reduce refrigerant emissions, protecting consumers and combating climate change. Therma is deploying across restaurants, retailers, distributors, and manufacturers worldwide with leading brands including McDonald's, Starbucks, Now Foods, 7-Eleven, and Marriott Hotels. Previously, Manik co-founded the Governance Lab, an innovation center at NYU that develops technology solutions to improve government. He has been recognized amongst the top 100 Harvard alumni in technology, a past affiliate of Harvard's Berkman Center for Internet and Society, and previously held positions at global investment firm D.E. Shaw & Company and the White House National Economic Council.
I'm so excited to garner even more inspiration. Now that we're talking, you're the CEO of Therma. After some really amazing experiences and education at some of the best places in the world, and you chose to spend so much of your time and effort dealing with sustainability and dealing with something that the world really needs. Your product is operating in more than 5,000 restaurants, looking at IoT devices and how do we manage information within our food ecosystem, and how do we know what's happening behind the scenes so that things don't go astray. So I'm excited to dive into your own journey as well as that of Therma's and understand sort of what is it that you care about and how you solve it. So Manik, tell me a little bit about sort of your entrance to the entrepreneurial world. How did you discover food waste and IoT as something that is deeply important to you?
I appreciate the question, and definitely something, I think about now. Never imagined I'd be working in refrigeration and the food supply chain. I think the journey was, kind of a long path, series of twists and turns, as life often is. I started working on policy right out of law school. So in college, I thought I was going to study political science and go and work in government. I ended up going to work in the private sector for a few years at a big hedge private equity fund, was an investor, then went back to law school, went to work in government doing economic policy in the Obama White House. And, I discovered or learned about the space around tech for good, partly through a colleague of mine. There was a woman I was working with, Beth Novak. She was the deputy CTO in the first Obama administration. She had also gone to law school. She jokes, a recovering lawyer. She'd written a book called WikiGov, the Wiki Government. Basically, the idea was that technology was transforming so much of life, how we dine, how we date, how we engage in everyday activity. But law and government and big public problems were still being solved like it's 1950. And so the idea behind the book was that, hey, you could build tech to solve some of these big problems that were broken and help improve sectors like regulation, compliance, and government. So I read the book, I listened to Beth talk, made a lot of sense. It was really inspired. This is 10 years ago. And I decided to join her instead of going to work in government, I left. And when she left government, we started a center together at NYU and MIT where she teaches, called the Governance Lab or GovLab. So that was how I got into tech, and the idea that one could deploy network and data tools to solve problems that have significant social impact. That was always something interesting to me. Coming from a family that was largely service oriented. My parents are both doctors. 3 of my grandparents are doctors. So I had a lot of service in my culture, family culture, so to speak. There was always this idea that you should do something with your life that's more than just, making your own situation better. And so sustainability was not a problem I thought a lot about as a kid. I first heard about climate change in the 90s, and I thought it was about the ozone layer getting depleted, and skin cancer. And then in college, this famous movie came out called Inconvenient Truth by Al Gore. And I went and heard him talk. He gave a talk at Harvard when I was an undergrad. I watched the movie, but I thought, and his son was actually a classmate of mine. Al Gore Jr. was a classmate of mine in college. But I thought that Senator Gore's book and the movie was really about a problem for the future. These were like problems that 100 years from now, people would have to worry about. And I grew up in California, largely in Northern California, a couple hours outside San Francisco in the Central Valley. And I thought, sustainability was a problem at most in the developing world. But more recently, in the last kind of 6 years, living in San Francisco, I started to experience some of this stuff firsthand. There were wildfires in Napa a couple of years ago, one of the worst ever in the state. And I was staying up there with my wife. We got on vacation. We actually evacuated in the middle of the night and drove through the wildfires with fire around the sides. 18 fire trucks went by us. At 2 a.m. My parents evacuated twice in Fresno, California. There were wildfires 35 miles from our house where I grew up. And it's seen kind of sustainability get worse and worse, not just in the kind of news, but also in California where I live. And amongst many people I knew, it became a topic that people started talking about every year. Oh, it's fire season. Oh my God, there's a drought. There's, lots of problems here. But, this one, around the growing urgency became one that I saw firsthand. And so I guess there was a combination of intellectually knowing it was a big problem, discovering it for the first time myself as a person living in Northern California and traveling around and seeing it in the land around us. And then also, I think from a technology standpoint, when I was working on GovLab, we discovered that there was an opportunity to work on compliance and improve safety and sustainability in the food industry. And so I started working on food back in 2015, around the time that Chipotle was having a series of issues with food safety.
I remember.
And we started scaling the precursor to Therma, a product called Co-Inspect, and realized that a lot of the problem that businesses had was around managing temperature, and all these perishables that they had, these inventory, were getting spoiled or thrown out or lost and wasted. And when I started studying and researching food waste, I didn't realize it was this big a problem. I had no idea that as Project Drawdown, one of the nonprofits studying global warming, says it's the 4th largest cause of global warming, which is just crazy. That
whoa, wait! I have to understand that better. How is it the 4th largest cause? What is it? What is it? The food waste, poor refrigeration, inaccuracies. Why is that such a huge problem?
Yeah, I think it's partly because everyone eats. So there's a lot of food in the world. The supply chain's pretty large. It moves trillions of dollars worth of inventory every year. Part of it is that we're just so inefficient. We waste so much of what we produce. Apparently, we waste around 33% of all the food we make, which is like an astounding number. That's like,
wow,
1 out of every 3 pounds of food that's made is thrown away. And when you think about that at scale, given that we feed 9 billion humans, I guess food waste as a country would be like the 4th largest emitter. And the amount of land mass that's needed to grow that much food is like the size of all of Australia, the entire continent of Australia. So it's just a large and broken problem, because the supply chain and the way in which food is consumed and sold has so much inefficiency in it. refrigeration is one source. It's not the only part of the problem.
Sure.
It's one of the sources of waste. Cold chain or cold refrigeration supply chain is not available in a lot of the world. So you have a lot of spoilage and a lot of waste because of inadequate or unavailable cold chain. And we're trying to help make a dent in that by making refrigeration more efficient, more effective. We're trying to catch spoilage and loss, especially when it's happening close to consumption. When product moves from the farm all the way down to the fork, a lot of the energy and a lot of the resources have already gone into making it. So if you're throwing product out right before people consume it, so much has already gone into getting it there. That steak or that sushi or that protein or that dairy is getting thrown out in the restaurant or the convenience store. It's just, it's extremely wasteful when you think about it from how much resourcing has gone into getting it there and getting it grown. And so we're trying to catch and reduce the storage and handling portion of the food waste problem. That's only one of the drivers, but it's a significant driver. And so that's kind of the scale. $1.6 trillion worth of food thrown out every year, 9% in storage and handling. That's the 150 billion that we're going after with Therma.
Incredible. Take me back to those founding days. Coming up with, in hindsight, makes perfect sense. Great thesis. A lot, it's perfectly clear. It couldn't have been that easy to unfold and uncover from the get-go. What was sort of your own ideation process like? Because you're also coming from a legal background and, you get an entrance to tech, you realize that you can use tech for good. There's sustainability that's actually a big problem. And how do you actually combine all that to come up with an entrepreneurial thesis as a CEO?
Yeah, it's a journey. These things are iterative. The first idea we had in starting out to build tech for good in the food supply chain was around compliance and safety. We were trying to help eliminate problems around food safety and quality by replacing pen and paper logbooks with a mobile app. That was our first product, Co-Inspect, Collaborative Inspect. Mobile app with structured data and abilities to timestamp and catch, and monitor stuff digitally instead of a clipboard. We scaled that to a few thousand locations, and we discovered that most of what people were checking was the temperature. And so in the summer of 2019, we were watching users using this mobile app, our first product, and we realized that we weren't solving the problem that well. We were replacing a paper clipboard with a digital clipboard, but they still had to do this work every day. So they were going from doing it on a piece of paper to doing it on the mobile app or a tablet. And so that's when we started thinking, well, they don't really want to check this stuff. They're busy. They've got a lot of stuff going on, and making them do it 4 times a day or 8 times a day in some locations is still very inefficient. What if we could automate it? What if we could use sensors to replace the work entirely and make it continuous? And so we started thinking about using IoT sensors in summer of 19. We discovered that most businesses didn't have sensors deployed inside refrigeration because Wi-Fi and Bluetooth couldn't get a signal out reliably. The fridge or the freezer had a side with iron or steel or aluminum, and the side of the fridge or the freezer blocked Wi-Fi and Bluetooth signal. So we started thinking about maybe we can solve that and improve on that. We developed a new type of connectivity, or we used a new type of connectivity protocol called long-range radio to develop a solution that uses radio as opposed to Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. So our sensors use LoRa, long-range radio, to push signal out of the inside of refrigeration. As we started putting these sensors in the world 2.5 years ago, in late 19, we discovered that we were helping businesses monitor and catch refrigeration failure. And by doing that, we were helping them reduce waste and reduce spoilage. And so we kind of stumbled into the problem around food waste because we were working on helping businesses catch and monitor refrigeration and replacing pen and paper, first with a mobile app and then with sensors. And so we discovered that refrigeration monitoring mattered a lot to them because they wanted to reduce waste and also wanted to reduce refrigeration downtime. That's another big source of emissions. Refrigeration has these chemicals inside called refrigerants. Well, when they leak in the atmosphere, they cause a lot of global warming. They're ultra warming chemicals. And so by monitoring refrigeration, we were helping businesses reduce food waste and in some cases reduce refrigerant leaks. And so we really discovered, wow, we're working on a climate problem. This is in 19. And that's when we started scaling. So Therma went from, 100 sensors to now over 10,000, couple of customers, now over 1,000 customers. And so now we're growing. But we kind of, stumbled into it, if you will.
Now, if you're looking at this company, is this a, it's a very impact first, type of company. Was that from the get-go? Is that what you knew, that you were going to position a company that has a very impact-oriented vision rather than a business-oriented vision? Because they do go hand in hand, but always sort of there is an intent component to it that you as an entrepreneur need to bring to the table. So, back then and today, are you with the same intent? And what intent is that?
Yeah, we are always, and I think we have always been interested in the impact side. Aaron, my co-founder, and I kind of decided to work together first at the Gov Lab. And then when we left to start Co-Inspire, we wanted to work on tech that had some kind of social significance, that really solved major public problems. And the problems we were looking at were problems that we felt the private sector wasn't solving well. So they were originally around compliance and safety, and then increasingly around climate and sustainability. But the idea of helping improve the food supply chain was really designed around, okay, this is an area that's both very inefficient, where businesses waste and lose a lot of money, and also one that we can do some good. That's been important to me since, 10 years ago when I got into tech and I left government. And that's partly, I think, what brought me and Aaron together, both at the Gov Lab and then now, as entrepreneurs.
Now, I can imagine going to restaurants and selling them, different IoT devices for their kitchen. I imagine that a lot of kitchens still today are pretty low tech in nature and they're very human oriented. What was the receptivity of customers? I mean, obviously you have more than 1,000 different customers, so the reception is good, but what was sort of the relationship that you were feeling with customers as you were first rolling this out and testing?
Yeah, well, I think we certainly had a lot of empathy for our customers and a lot of experience. Because of Co-Inspect, we've been working in the food industry for 3 years. We've been scaling and selling into food manufacturers, food distributors, and, food service and retail. So we had gotten to know and spent a lot of time with restaurant owner operators, food service owner operators, food manufacturers. I think I went to 40 states doing sales and meeting corporates, and been to Walmart 3 times, McDonald's, Starbucks twice, Wendy's corporate, Denny's corporate twice. I've been to a lot of places that I'd never been to when I went to Harvard for college and law school, and certainly very different parts of the country. But I think what we discovered with Therma was that we were solving a problem that was saving businesses money in a way that was very measurable. We were catching refrigeration equipment failure. That was helping them reduce asset replacement and asset repair, and helping them reduce food spoilage. And that's measurable. Those are dollars that they need. And so even though we started selling Therma at a really tough time, we started selling Therma in early 2020. Well, you might remember a couple of months ago, the world literally fell apart. COVID showed up, and restaurants and hospitality and retail companies were not exactly having an easy time. So the fact that we grew 3x in 2020 and again 3x in 21 was not easy. But I think what we discovered is we were solving a problem that businesses cared about, and it created real ROI for them. We really saved them money. We also did it in a way that was easy to deploy. Our solution requires about 15 minutes to set up. There's no technician, no installation. It's a drop-and-play solution. You hold up our mobile app, you label the sensors, and you're done. And we don't charge for hardware, and we don't charge for implementation. It's a pure SaaS model. It's an entirely subscription-based. So solving a problem that's measurable, that saves them money, where the installation is easy, where there's not a lot of friction, and on top of that, having it be a climate win, having it be a sustainability win, that combination has made it attractive for big businesses and small. And so I've been very excited that we've been able to sign up, operators of McDonald's, Pizza Hut, Domino's, Taco Bell, Starbucks, Burger King, Wendy's, and a bunch of others, and a bunch of independents. We've got food trucks, mom and pop pizzerias, 3 location scoop shops, independent breweries. These are really folks that are not super well resourced. They don't have huge budgets. And so I'm really proud of that, because I always wanted to build tech for good, but also make it accessible to people, regardless of whether you're a big conglomerate or a small independent. And I guess the last thing I'll say about that, Michael, is I grew up in a farm town. I grew up in an ag town called Fresno. And so I literally had farms behind my house. We had like walnut orchards literally behind my home. I think I always had this appreciation for the food industry, that it's important, and it's everywhere. We need food as one of the pillars of modern society, but it's kind of one of those areas that's considered unsexy. Most people I know don't want to think about it or don't really spend a lot of time worrying about how we get stuff from farm to fork. In places like San Francisco and New York, you like eating fancy food and good food, but you don't have to think about how it gets there. And so I guess I've always had this kind of personal interest and appreciation just because I knew a lot of growers and a lot about ag.
I love it. How do you get 1,000 restaurants to hear about you? Well, what is it? I'm coming from the deep tech scene, a lot of SaaS companies, there's different, go-to-market strategies that I could think of, but how do you go and create and sell a product? Probably one of the first IoT devices that a lot of restaurants put into their kitchens. How do you go and get it even in front of their eyes so that they can realize that they can not only make the world, save food waste, but they can also save money along the way?
Definitely something I spend a lot of time thinking about, because now we're trying to get, from 10,000 to 100,000 sensors. I think there's a few different things that have worked well for us. One is e-commerce and online. We've actually had really good success with digital marketing and content. So we market and advertise on platforms like Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Google, of course. And so the reality is a lot of our buyers and a lot of our customers are digital natives or at least checking out technology digitally before buying. And so e-commerce has been a great way for us to drive, traffic to ROI or landing pages with case studies or with testimonials where people can say, oh, that's a business like mine. Oh, that's a win. That technology might be applicable. It's also a really low friction way to get to people. It doesn't require a lot of, massive capital investment. And then we also have a traditional model. We have a direct sales team. Our direct sales team includes, folks that are doing lead generation. We've got people that are attending conferences. We go to about a dozen conferences a year. We do booths.
Wow.
We fly around the country. I told you I've been to a lot of states. We definitely do some outbound field selling for larger accounts. That's what I think of as a traditional direct sales model. So we've got an e-commerce, digital marketing driven go-to-market, and then a direct sales. And now we're starting to pursue channel partners. So now we're starting to work with some distribution and channel partners that are looking to resell or cross-sell technology like ours that might have much larger armies or much larger footprints of customers. And we're starting to work with them as partners. But yeah, those are kind of the three ways we're going to market.
Manik, I love what you're doing with Therma. I love even more the journey that you're talking about, going from one path in life, from one area to all of a sudden discovering this new vertical and discovering technology for good and the Gov Lab and then looking at climate and going back to college and figuring, okay, this makes sense with what I learned there. And now I can actually leverage this for restaurants and build them some product, but actually I'm stumbling onto something even greater that actually serves the purpose of what I got excited about tech in the first place. And now I can actually build a big, massive company in a $150 billion industry. So awesome journey. I'm sorry that I left some pieces out in the summarization, but that's what come on, and it's a really inspiring journey. So thank you very, very much. And best of luck with Therma. I'm going to continue cheering from the side. And thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thanks for the kind words. If you want to check it out, hellotherma.com. Feel free to reach out to me, Manik at hellotherma.com. Thanks for having me, Michael.